landscape of using AI and the various applications that it can have in our learning and teaching. I am Martin Coots. I am an education officer with the digital learning and teaching team at Education Scotland. I was originally a secondary maths teacher in the northeast of Scotland and a digital skills teacher where we looked at the use of technology. I'm joined by my colleague Brian Clark, who is going to be working in the background, manning the chat and looking at things of that nature. Brian.
Hello everyone, nice to see you all. I won't say too much because we've only got half an hour to get through a lot of different questions and a lot of different scenarios. So I'll just be in the chat hanging around.
Thank you. We are absolutely honoured and delighted to be joined by three different perspectives on the use of AI within any kind of industry, from education to creativity to higher education. We are joined by a colleague from the Fries and Galloway, Jim Brown. Jim, you want to introduce yourself?
I think you said it. My name's
Nice.
Jim.
Okay,
I'm Dumfries and Galloway. I'm the Chief Education Officer at Dumfries and Galloway, and formerly secondary science teacher and then head teacher. Thanks.
Excellent. We are joined also, and I will not butcher your last name in any way whatsoever, Constantina, but we are joined by Constantina as well, who joined us at very short notice this morning. Very delighted that you were able to take the time to join us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Martin. I appreciate that. And I'm Konstantina Martzoukou. I'm from the Robert Gordon University, and I'm associate professor there. And currently I'm working on an AI-related project with schools, and it's very much based on co-creation with young people, and we are creating cartoon stories and exploring the challenges and the opportunities that they encounter.
And finally, we are joined by, now, do we give you your official title here as an MBE, or do we just refer to you as Helena from Daydream Believers? How do you want to be introduced?
Listen, Martin, it's a Monday coming near the end of term. You can call me anything at this point in time.
I'll call
Honestly,
you for dinner.
Call me for dinner, whatever. My name's Helena. Many of you, I'm sure, know me. I am the Managing Director of Daydream Believers, and we've been working with Martin, Brian and Kirsty and all the team, creating travel guides and an exploration hub. We're called Daydream Believers because we recognise that we've all got limited attention spans, so we may already have lost you, in which case, Brian, this is a good chance to put in the chat the Gen AI Exploration Hub link, and people can have a look at the work that we're doing. I'd like to say I'm delighted to be here. I'm slightly nervous about this. Martin showed me some of the questions and I was thinking, holy moly, big questions, 30 minutes, can we do it? Right, back to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Helena. And yes, I have no doubt whatsoever that you guys will be able to answer these questions, because it's not necessarily what the questions are, but it's more your perspective on it. It's what you're actually looking at. So with that, we've got 5 questions. We might not necessarily get through them all, which is absolutely fine. But I suppose the first question is, we are in a unique context with CFE and the current way that we're sort of going through the improvement cycle. And there is a huge focus on equity. And I suppose looking at this from an equity point of view, how do you see the potential use of generative AI tools and their way to enhance the specific aspects of equitable access and outcomes, and what key challenges we might need to address? And I think I'll kind of pick from random, and I'll start with, because you're so worried about it, Helena, I'll start with you. What do you kind of think about looking at this from an equity point of view, especially with your insights into the hub and whatnot?
I suppose what I'm here today is really to talk about my experience. And I think in AI, that's the only way that many of us can frame this. What are we doing at the minute? What's our experience? And the context that I bring this is working with schools on the SCQF creative thinking qualification, both the level 5 and 6. And we've got 64 high schools now across Scotland working on that qualification. And what I'm seeing, the evidence of where AI is enhancing curriculum for excellence is around the support for the 4 capacities. So personalised learning, creative expression, ethical awareness. I think that AI enables and supports interdisciplinary learning and can be really a big help in bridging STEM and arts and sustainability. I think it improves inclusion and accessibility. You've got tools like speech to text. And I think ultimately, bizarrely, it has a way for us to both, recognize, celebrate, and boost our things that make us uniquely human. And that's our creativity, our empathy, and our confidence. So I see it as something that can support us. I think when we look at what Curriculum for Excellence in particular was brought in my opinion, it was much more about the experience rather than the outcomes. And we became a bit fixated on the outcomes. And I think when AI is aligned to the experience, and that's what we're seeing in the learning outcomes of the creative thinking qualification, where it's been used in schools around the learning outcome of fail and fix, of iteration, where our young people have an idea that is uniquely theirs, but they then use AI to develop that, to iterate, and then to help them to tell a story.
Brilliant. I think that's a really important aspect to look at. Constantina, from your perspective, is there anything that jumps out to you in this regard?
Yes, I completely agree with Irina, but I think Scots education has really different components, and I think that one of them is the learner perspective. So yes, we can tailor educational content, we can develop personalized ways of learning, obviously, you can help with accessibility, promoting equity, and also identifying learning gaps in students. But we also want to think in terms of what is happening in the classroom. So I think there are opportunities for real-time feedback. Let's think about the educator in the classroom with 30 young people. We can use it actually to accelerate learning while a teacher is with a group of students. AI can help actually another group. So then the teacher can go back to that group and can explore different learning and ideas that have emerged from the AI discussions. So I think there's a great opportunity to revolutionize learning here. But I really want to use a metaphor because I see a few challenges as well. And I was listening to a presentation on YouTube the other day, and they were giving this metaphor. They said that AI is like pole vaulting. So when we first introduced this sport, the poles were actually made of hard wood. So they had very limited flexibility and strength. Then fiberglass was introduced, so the poles became more flexible, so the athletes could achieve better, because the pole gave them more kinetic energy and they could achieve better heights. But the fiberglass also came with some challenges. For example, it requires more maintenance, and the athletes need to develop a specific technique in order to be able to be more effective. So it's similar with AI. I think this is a good metaphor for AI. Technology will be constantly evolving, and I think the Curriculum for Excellence can provide and is aiming to provide more flexibility and inclusive education. But I think if we don't offer the means, so the fiberglass pole to access the AI tools and the education to use them, so the training how to use the fiberglass pole, and if the poles are too expensive to buy and not accessible, then we'll have a very big problem too. So I think we need to think about the different learners we've got, whether they're beginners, whether they're advanced, like the athletes, and how they can use AI in flexible ways that are most beneficial to them. And that's all I'm going to say, I think.
No, I think that's a key important part, is that flexibility and adaptability to those new situations. Jim, from your perspective in a local authority that is quite spread out in terms of equity and location and various challenges that you sort of face, maybe with equity of access and internet access and things of that nature. What's the potential you're kind of seeing here?
Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, absolutely agree with the two previous comments. I love a complex analogy, so that's beautiful, Constance. But equally, I thought that idea of enhancing our uniquely human quality, I think that's a really nice way of putting it. We've got so many things we can look at. I love that happy point as well, to say, we know that feedback is something that perhaps within classroom experiences is not necessarily always done in the way we need it to be done, and yet that is one of the 2 or 3 qualities of a lesson that will make the most difference to learners. So if we can use AI to enhance feedback, that's obviously something that's going to impact. I think specifically you're looking at things like lesson planning and marking and feedback and personalized teaching, but specifically with a focus on this first question about this idea of equity and the curriculum for excellence, I do look at it in terms of things like what it can offer for example, young people who have attendance problems. There's clearly enhanced differentiation opportunities, language support, plenty of other ASN opportunities, support for ASN planning. So I think there is a real opportunity here. You mentioned specifically, though, there, Martin, this idea of what we might do in terms of a wider geography. And I think, we're certainly looking currently at delivering a much greater online offer, and I think that can certainly be enhanced through AI. So we're certainly looking at columns within our existing structure that are across the entire secondary school curriculum offer. So we'll certainly be looking at that in that sense. I think there is something, though, because the question's got two halves, hasn't it? And the second half is, what might be some key challenges? And I think it comes back to that, the central point that we've had for some years now. If we can't guarantee that young people have got access to devices, for example, some device, which we know isn't always the case, and it's not just in the setting, in the school, it's also at home, then I think that really does present a challenge for us. And so I think we need to continue looking at that to see how we can mitigate that. But yeah, for me, there's a huge amount in terms of pupils as well. If you think, just finding ways to explain things in more user-friendly language, revision practice. I've got 2 children myself, and they're using AI for their own revision. So there's no question about that. And as I said, language support as well. So there's masses in this. But yeah.
I think that's an important aspect, is that kind of, and that actually brings us quite well onto the second question, which we won't necessarily get through all of these, because I think it's good to have a nice wee discussion in these regards. But I think this has been touched upon, and I think just continuing with your point you've got there, Jim, the most promising and practical AI tools or applications, some of the things that are readily available to us, is there anything that's kind of jumping out to you that could realistically be integrated into the classroom? Say, Dumfries and Galloway's in quite a unique situation at the moment, where you're looking at new tools coming in, you're looking at maybe getting some new services adapted through Glow. So within the next sort of 1 to 2 years, what do you think is going to be introduced into the current learning and teaching landscape, and what challenges would that bring in terms of staff development?
Well, yeah, sorry, I'm assuming you came back to me then, Martin. So
yes, sorry, Jim, yeah.
I've got plenty of examples of teachers, particularly using Copilot to look at lesson planning, for example. I've got very, very good examples of rewriting whole curriculum or curriculum delivery very, very quickly through the use of something like Copilot or Goblin or ChatGPT. So I think we've got an opportunity there straight away. I've got head teachers saying to me that, assembly plans, press releases, policy writing, it's so much quicker and simpler. You've got a blank sheet of paper, and suddenly you put it through AI and you've got that first draft. Obviously, critically, from my point of view, that's one of the challenges. You have to still run that through your own understanding of things.
It still requires personal knowledge.
Still requires that human aspect to it. So yeah, I think there's plenty in there. But like I say, in terms of the refreshing of curriculum approaches, I think it's absolutely unparalleled and is taking huge amounts of time off that curriculum refresh.
Constantina, is there anything that's promising in the sort of the FE landscape and sort of some of the approaches you're seeing?
Yes, well, in higher education sector, we use a lot Turnitin, and that makes the process of marking, for example, quite straightforward. But I think that I wouldn't be, open to really suggesting specific ones, because now we are really going through a phase of involving and developing tools, and I think sticking to one tool would be quite dangerous. But I think what I want to say is that maybe we need to give priority to those tools that assist with lesson planning, grading, and making the life of the teacher easier. Maybe creating personalized learning pathways so that teachers can actually gain time so that they can upskill the students, the learners. So there are two different parallel things, I think. When we are thinking about that, we should really discuss what tools and for whom. If we can really give more time to the teacher, then I think that we can allow more time for them to experiment as well with more evolutionary ways and different practices in the classroom. So I wouldn't say a specific tool, although we use Copilot and we use it in higher education because we use the version that your personal data cannot supposedly get misused. So I think data protection and safety is high priority, obviously, in schools, especially when we say to young people to use those tools. So if we say to them, use Google Gemini, can we really reassure them that this is a safe environment? I think this is a key question. And can we make sure that the environment that they use is indeed safe for them? That's really my primary concern.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is these tools are available. We have Google Gemini that is rolled out via Glow for local authorities that are using it, but it is only limited to teachers. And we have Adobe Express rolled out to local authorities via Glow, but they only use Adobe's own image library. They use Firefly and things of that nature. So yes, those are absolutely. But I like that point about it's not limited to one tool. It's about using any tool robustly and effectively. And Helena, I think that brings me to you. As naturally as possible. As someone who has seen a wide range of these tools and is working with the Exploration Hub, would you agree that and I know you probably will, but would you agree that developing the skill is important, and what challenge do you see around getting that challenge kind of getting those skills robustly developed within teachers?
I think, yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work around IDL and challenge-based learning. And I think, as I said at the beginning, I think that's a really interesting space for AI to sit. But I'm also thinking about if I was a teacher sitting out listening to us this afternoon, and I looked at that question, and first of all, in the next 1 to 2 years, the key point in that is predicting any tool in the next 1 to 2 months is difficult enough. So us sort of saying, use this, but I also think there are a number of tools out there, for example, Padlet, which enable you to just go in and have a play. And I think that is a key part of the support that our teachers need at the minute. We need to open up space for them to be able to play with these tools and not be afraid of failure, and enabling yourself to think of yourself as learning alongside the learners. So moving away from that sage in the stage to thinking of yourself as the coach and the mentor, because make no mistake that your young people are out there are using these tools. They're using these tools in a very effective way. They're learning very quickly about what's going to make their lives easier. So be open to learning from them as part of that CPD. And then the other point, and I've written this down because someone said it to me when we had a chat during today, and they were talking about AI, not to think about it as an answer machine, but to think about it as your thinking partner. And I think that's a beautiful way to frame these tools. As you use them, think about the tool that's not going to take away your own autonomy and agency or diminish your curiosity or make you lazy, but actually one that makes you go, yes, and okay, you've come up with that, so what else? And that's where AI works beautifully, I think. So my thing would be, we can't predict the next 1 to 2 months, but there are tools out there that could make tomorrow very easy for you. Lesson planning, support, and any other way like that.
I think that's a really good point, and I think it's it is kind of important to have these discussions around the tools that are, it's not necessarily about the tool, but it's about the mindset. It's about, I mean, it is implied in the name with these, and Brian and I talk about this often. It's implied, it's Copilot, it is ChatGPT, it is help me make. I think the one in Padlet is called Help Me Make, or it's they're all designed to be a conversation. It's designed to help you. And ideation, I think, is the skill that AI doesn't necessarily replace. That ideation is still what people need to have. Jim, we were saying about this just previously, where you were saying you still need to have an awareness or a knowledge within the particular subject area or within the particular field that you're talking about. But when you have that ideation, the tool can actually help you do something more effectively and more more efficiently. And I think I'm definitely going to get you guys back, because I think we could, beyond a half-hour chat, we could actually do a 3-hour chat and probably not graze the surface. And I know we'd said it was going to be 5 questions, but I think this is the question that comes up for us quite a lot, and I'm interested to get your take on this, because this is something that people are constantly concerned about. Is about the privacy, the algorithmic bias, the potential impact on student and teacher agency. The fact that you said, Elena, that pupils are already out there using these tools, and I suppose from our point of view, it's all about information sharing. It's all about awareness. But Constantina, I'll start with you on this one. What would be the approach that would be most important from you to ensure about the robustness and the ethical awareness of using these tools, and people often talk about ownership and plagiarism, and we've got a session tomorrow with the IPO where I think you'll probably find that the conversation around ownership is very interesting, because it's ownership versus ethics becomes very, very clear when you actually find out what the legal standpoint is. So I suppose from your perspective, what is the most, how do we ensure that ethical and robust approach when using these tools?
Yes, absolutely. I think these are the same values we should have really, not now, but when the internet happened, because these are issues we're facing since the beginning of the internet. So my view is that we should be embracing AI rather than trying to avoid and try to understand AI, but with human oversight. So that, in my view, requires direct changes to pedagogy and assessment. So the AI, although it has the ethical issues, if we embrace it, I see that as an opportunity to use it to teach learners about the issues that we face with data privacy, bias, and underrepresentation as societal phenomena. So we can use the AI as a means of illustration, actually, and to show this phenomena and the importance of humans and the capacity for common sense, for emotion, for culture, for ethics. And let's not forget that the AI output is a mirror of the challenges we face in our society. So I think the AI, we can leverage this opportunity to use those as examples, the outputs of AI, to illustrate those. So of course, I can talk about continuous monitoring, I can talk about collaboration and establishing ethical frameworks, but we all talk about these. So I wanted to really emphasize that point of view here.
Absolutely. I think those conversations are important, and actually talking to pupils and making them aware. And as you say, it's not a new conversation. It's one that we have had since the introduction of the internet and these tools. Jim, from a policy maker perspective, someone at a local authority level, what are some of the conversations that are happening around, because you're saying it's being explored. So what are some of the policy conversations that are taking place?
Thanks for that, Martin. I think this idea of algorithmic bias is really intriguing, isn't it? Because it's not, if you like, artificial intelligence. It's sort of machine learning. Actually, it's looking at decisions we've made and things we've done, and finding best fits. And of course, by doing so, you can put from the outset some kind of bias on, which I think is what you're intending by the question. And so Ada said it's kind of almost like any other source of data, that we always triangulate data in order to make sure that we're not basing decision making on a single possibly faulty source of information. And that's what I'd simply say about this, that, you know, in some way, by some mechanism, we have to build in the fact that there's recognition that this is not always accurate. We have to use a mixed methodology and triangulation when we're looking for answers and outcomes. And as we've just heard, you know, this is a reality. So simply, if you like, being Canute in the Tide and saying, well, I don't like it, therefore I'm not going to accept its existence in terms of our context. That's not going to work. We have to recognise this. I think, though, looking at this in the broadest terms, and I am going to very quickly jump to the last point very quickly. I love that thinking partner idea. I think that's absolutely central to my understanding of how this can be used. And if we look at not just, if you like, delivering our lesson, but the whole system thinking. As a head teacher, I will be looking at this saying, have a look at my Power BI of the totality of data around my school. Help me understand that using the other 350 secondary schools in Scotland and what they've done the last few years based on similar pictures, what might be useful improvement journeys for me as a school. That would be incredibly powerful. And what it's doing is effectively making a learning network up without me needing to have the necessity of picking a phone up or having a Teams meeting with a group of other people and then interpreting everything they say. You've already got all of that machine learning in a single output. And then you look at local authorities, and then you look at the national picture. So I look at this in terms of systems think and thinking, well, actually, you've got a phenomenally powerful tool here to start, as you say, being the thinking partner for me to say, well, what do I now need to do based on my Power BI data for the entire authority? What would work best to make the picture more equitable and more excellent for all our learners?
Brilliant. Totally agree. And it's the very definition of artificial intelligence, is taking those things that a human would do and have them do it more efficiently and give insights into data. Helena, we started with you. We will end with you. Have you got anything that to add and to share?
First of all, a little plug for tomorrow's talk, 3:30, where I'm on once more with feeling. And in that space, what we're talking about, taming the wild, wild west with AI, and that's looking at what's happening in industry, particularly the creative industries, who as an industry are, I believe, having to pivot the most. Their jobs are up for threat, their content creation. And I think that comes back to that second part of the question. We cannot look at this on our own. We need to look at what's happening in industry at the minute. You know, many of these companies are already setting in place bias checks. We should be doing that. We should be doing that with policy, but we should also be enabling our teachers and our young people to be agents of that bias check. So just come back to my story in terms of the context of the creative thinking qualification, the fifth learning outcome, tell me a story, communicate. And that outcome is called tell me a story, make me care. AI enables you to tell a story, but does it make you care? And the care part is where is the ethics in this? Where is the empathy? Where is your understanding? Where is the resilience? Where is the robustness in this whole story? So I think that ethics needs to be right across the whole curriculum now. I know we're going for a hard shutdown at 4, Martin, so I'll give you a minute, but it needs to be across the whole curriculum, just like AI needs to be looked at across the whole curriculum. But if it feels a bit confusing, join us tomorrow at 3:30 in the Wild West and see together, can we come up with a few answers?
That is an absolutely seamless plug, Helena. And yes, we are absolutely, you know, we're thrilled that we've got you guys sharing some of the things, and it's a great presentation. The stuff that we have going on this week is going to bring all of these kind of conversations to light. I've just been having a chat with my colleagues just off to the side here, and I could have you three talking for hours. I think it's wonderful to have these insights. We'd love to have you back to do this again, sort of towards June time. Would you be willing to come back and have a? We'll probably get all the involved. We won't make it as rigid, Helena. I'll probably try and make it more like a podcast, and we'll have a wee bit of a natural flow, and we'll even have a plug for some Casper mattresses or things of that nature. But I just want to pass on my 2 cents, and I think the fact that we have higher education, local authority, and a creative industry approach, and the fact that you're all kind of talking about this in the same kind of vein and the same approach gives me a bit of a glimmer of hope that we realize that this is not simply a buzzword term, that this is something that we are recognizing is going to have an impactful or a meaningful impact on the way in which we conduct our lives as teachers, as learners, as creators, and as people that are using it in everyday life. I spoke to a group of pupils this morning, and I had a vision for the future. And my vision for the future is that these tools become invisible. They just become something that allow us to do things that we would normally do, but in a more productive and easier way. Something that doesn't need us to be, even something like, there's my daughter phoning me just now. I just want to put her on hold and say, I'm in a meeting, realize this, I can't answer. If I didn't answer the first time, I'm not going to answer the second time. But even things like that. Spam callers. I've got a button now on my phone that says screen call, and Google Gemini pops up and says, those types of things that are allowing us to interact in a more, but not losing the meaningful conversations like this that we are having. And I think if we continue to have these conversations and meaningful discussions around the role in which it plays, I think we're going to get a good. We're quite a fortunate landscape in Scotland just now that I think we're a bit ahead with some of this in ways that having seen some other nations, they're maybe just doing a throw it at the wall and see what sticks. We are trying to be a bit more strategic and thoughtful about this. Constantina, Jim, Helena, thank you very much for taking the time. I'm sorry it was only a half an hour. We will definitely get this longer, and we'll get you back to have more discussions. Everybody, if you want to share your thanks in the chat, it would be most appreciated. We'll be posting up, we'll be sharing links to these recordings